Now, by the time we're entering into the 400s, the 5th century, we have a split between East and West in Rome in the empire. In 402, they moved the capital of the empire, of the Western Empire, from Rome, which at that point is seen as a horrid city full of the Roman mob and that sort of thing. They're going to move to Ravenna, which is in northern Italy. We're going to see continuous invasions from the north, and Ravenna is remote, but it's defensively much better than the city of Rome because it's up on a hill. In 409, the Visigoths invade, and in 410 they sack Rome. For some historians, this is the end of Rome. The reason all these barbarians are invading Rome is because they're being forced to the west by the Huns who are coming in from the east. And the Romans are misinterpreting this as the barbarian tribes trying to get to Rome itself, trying to take more territory, when in fact they're literally running for their lives from this other power source that the Romans aren't particularly aware of. So in 410, the Visigoths will sack Rome. They take Galla Placidia as a hostage. Eventually, she's released and returned. And in 476, the Ostrogoths will sack Rome itself, which marks the end of the Roman Empire. And the reason this is considered the end of the Roman Empire is they will replace the emperor with a barbarian as an emperor, thereby bringing an end to it. Although, from a historical perspective, most barbarian tribes are trying to recreate Rome. They're not trying to take it for themselves. The Ostrogoths are Christians, although they are heretics according to the papacy because they're seen as Arians, having to do with the Arian heresy, whether or not Jesus is in fact divine or not. But what we're looking at is the mausoleum of Galla Placidia. And this is again located in Ravenna. The exterior is very simple, very austere. There's no marble, there's no beautiful stone, etc. like we're used to. It does have a cruciform shape, and the windows, instead of being glass, because we're late in the empire, are actually alabaster, which is a stone like marble with some level of translucence. Now, when we go inside, it's a different story. We see mosaics and marble everywhere. It's as if they took all of the money that they would have used on the exterior and used it instead on the interior. And what we want to look at is a specific mosaic, this one. This is a lunette once again, so it's a mosaic, an arch-formed mosaic. And here we see Jesus, but very different Jesus. So, first of all, he has a halo. This is the first time that we're seeing a halo used. And the halo always depicts someone who is religious, to separate them from the common man. The shepherd's crook has now become a cross to enforce that imagery. And he's seated amongst his flock, in this case, the sheep representing his flock, the Christians themselves. The clothing is where it gets really interesting, though, because he's wearing gold and violet. Now, this doesn't mean that he's a fan of gold and violet. The gold and violet are symbolic of the emperor in the late empire, specifically the violet color, because that came from a very rare mollusk or clam that had to be smashed up and used for dye. It's incredibly expensive, and it's only ever worn by senators and by the emperor. The gold is another symbol of power, and yet we don't think of Jesus as having a great deal of terrestrial power. What they're doing in this case is they're dressing him much like the emperor to show his role within the church as a ruler over all the functions of the church. When we look at him, we also notice a few differences from today. His skin tone is a little bit different. His facial features are different. He doesn't have the long hair. He looks like an Italian of the 5th century. So again, they're representing Jesus as themselves, as they understand him. Just like when you read a book, you see the protagonist or the character you're following as yourself or some version of yourself. It's the same thing here. They're representing Jesus as they understand him, which is, in this case, as Italian, and in imperial garb to show his power within the church.